What's up, everybody? It's Greg Birch with Delta Financial, and this is the Be the Difference podcast. The podcast is all about making you a better person in your life and in your business with coaching on sales, leadership, mindset, marketing, everything under the sun when it comes to being an entrepreneur. And we bring on guest speakers. Today, I have the honor and pleasure of welcoming Miss Candice Gottlieb-Clark.
Yeah.
Did I pronounce that right?
Perfectly.
Boom. That's what I'm talking about. When I didn't even check it beforehand. Usually I do. So, Candice, how are you?
I am doing well. I'm glad to be on your show today. Glad to be chatting with you and your group, your audience.
Yeah.
It's a good day. Sun's out.
It
Nice.
is a beautiful day. Actually, especially here in Dallas, Texas, in the Dallas area. It's a perfect day. I actually just about an hour and a half ago got done with an outdoor run, and it's feeling great outside. It's nice.
Awesome.
So for those of you that don't know Candice, let me go ahead and introduce her. She is a renowned business advisor, coach, speaker, author, and conflict management specialist. She founded Dynamic Team Solutions to help businesses strengthen their leaders and teams through enhanced communication, teamwork, leadership, and conflict management. Candice holds a master's degree in counseling and is a board-certified executive coach. She is sought-after speaker and writer on topics including leadership, communication, and team dynamics, and she is the author of the best-selling leadership book, Find, Fix, Fill Your Leadership Gap, as you can see in the background. Candice, this is going to be a great conversation. It's been a while since I had a really good leadership talk on the podcast, so I love talking about leadership.
Awesome. And I love talking about it, so we're going to be in good shape.
Yes, definitely. So what fueled this passion for leadership for you?
You know, if I was to look back as to where it came from, I can say that I realized when I was in high school, I guess, and you're taking those classes that are to try and help you figure out what color your parachute's going to be. And I remember my note was that I wanted to be a psychologist that worked in businesses, that was sort of what I saw as my future. And I think that arose from living in a family. My parents divorced when I was young, and my mother had a job that was only to pay the bills. It was not because she enjoyed it. And she stayed even though she felt she was mistreated, and she'd be angry. And I remember feeling as a teenager going, God, people shouldn't hate where they work. They spend so much time there. They should really enjoy it. So that was the business psychology. And I think ultimately that's the passion that led me to eventually starting my own business and then writing this book to help people be better leaders, create better teams, and ultimately to help people have workplace experiences that are positive.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel that psychology fits into that?
Oh my gosh, everywhere. I think we all come to whatever, maybe not everyone, but many of us come to a place where we gravitate toward our strengths anyway. Yeah. And I think just instinctively, I have very good intuition. I can read people very well. I can understand situations and the patterns and dynamics that are happening. It's very natural. But I think the psychology, both the degree and just the general practice, is just the mindset of looking at things beyond what's on the surface and just recognizing there's always more to it. And in fact, I use a graphic in some of my presentations of an iceberg, and I talk about conflict, and I ask people attending my audience, this is like a poll question I do that says, what are the fundamental causes underlying workplace conflict? And the 4 options I offer are communication, what is it? Now I'm trying to remember the 4. Communication, poor relations, personal baggage, and the 4th one is, I'm not remembering the 4th one, but regardless, most people choose communication. And what it actually is that personal baggage. It's what we show up every day with in the process of work is what decides how we communicate, how we manage conflict, how stress, that's the 4th one, how stress impacts us. And so you can't say, oh, stress is the problem or communication is the problem. It's not. It's that we're all individuals and we all have our own situational backgrounds. No 2 people are alike. And even if you have the same experiences, your response to them is always unique. And so just helping people to recognize that makes it so much easier to start looking at conflict through a different lens.
And it sounds like there's a lot of self-awareness that's built into this. In that process that you're speaking about, like having a level of self-awareness to identify and move past all that baggage that you're showing up with, right? I
I
think
would say
gotta hold that.
it's less that, truly, it's more about recognizing other people have that going on.
Yeah.
So when you're taking something personally, or where you feel somebody's just creating whatever they're creating for you,
Mhm.
whether it's you feel that they're withholding information or they're difficult, what have you, your vision is that it's personal. Most people, it's personal, it's against you. That's where it comes from. And if you can broaden your mind for a moment to think, okay, this person has a whole host of background experiences before me
Yeah.
that cause them to see things the way they're seeing it. And I need to help them see me as a unique person that is not everybody they've ever dealt with that had this circumstance. And that really can cause a breakthrough in addressing things. So it's self-awareness can help, but it's really other awareness that I'm thinking of when I talk about it.
Yeah. And on top of that is like two things right here is like, A, don't ever make assumptions because you can't assume that that's why someone's doing that. And
Right.
B, don't take offense to what somebody else does, because there's their own decisions, their own thoughts, their processes, their feelings that are all baked into when something happens. And 9 times out of 10, it wasn't to it wasn't against you, right?
Right.
We feel
Precisely.
we feel it was because it happened to us, but it could have happened to a lot of people in the same room, and all of us feel like that happened to me, right? Like, but if you just don't take offense and don't make assumptions, man, you're gonna live a much happier life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
And it also opens the doors to communicating through it. So you're not stuck with that
yep,
new baggage you've just potentially created.
yep, yep, absolutely. So it's funny that you bring up the that you have that experience of psychology in your background. My mom is a psychologist, and then it had a heavy impact on me growing up with all the different psychological testing she put all of our kids through. And, and always like as a guinea pig for everything, and then just being, I guess, in close proximity to it. And I studied some psychology in college when I was getting my degree, but I do feel just by being in proximity and seeing my mom the way that she operated, that I have the ability to read people very well, also. And so
Mhm.
I can usually understand. I see, and I'll disagree with you here. I think it's a level of self awareness, and here's why: because I've identified why I do things to a certain degree, and I can really like almost put a label on it so that when I see other people do it, I reflect back to why I did that. And I say, well, okay, the
Okay.
most likely reason is because of this, that, the other. Right. So it gives me an insight just by being super, super aware of why I'm doing things and when I have feelings and how those actually came about. I can usually look at somebody and be like, hey, they have these feelings. It's probably for this. And we need to do this because this is probably what they're looking at, because this is how I would do it. Like if I was
Right.
so I'm pretty normal, like I'm a regular person. So, and that's the thing about psychology, it kind of brings us all together
Mhm.
and it gives us an idea of why people do for the most part. There's obviously going to be outliers. And so
And it
uh,
just it builds sensitivity. I think what you're
yeah,
saying is that it starts with yourself. If you have some self-awareness, you can then have other
yeah,
awareness. But really the ultimate goal in what I am trying to teach when I do that is the idea that it isn't always what it seems. In fact,
exactly.
it rarely is what it seems. And when you have compassion enough to recognize that, you might then move forward with trying to resolve it and learn about the other
Absolutely.
person and go from a place of curiosity rather than conviction.
And it definitely helped me. So I'm prior military. I spent, as an officer 11 years. I do think that it helped me as a leader when working with soldiers,
I
and
bet.
all my experiences when I was military was my ability to kind of read the situation. And I see, I was trained as a young officer that leadership's kind of like a toolbox, right? And with each person, there's a different tool set that you'll use.
Mhm.
And like, not everybody you can pull out a hammer and try to get them to move,
The
right?
combination's different with each person.
Combination is different,
The
but with
pressure, the frequency, the tools, all of those pieces. Yeah.
and it's all different. And so what happens is that you kind of learn by doing it over and over again that when you see similar signs, you're like, I know what tool to use here, right? And it's
Mhm.
the same thing with people. It's kind of like seeing the problem set and then using the tool to fix the problem based on the person. And it it really, really helped me, my understanding just from my mom for the psychology and being able to read people, to be able to learn new tool sets very quickly
Right.
as a leader. So no, I 100% agree when it comes to like the psychology is can be a major factor. So what when you got into leadership, you kind of started this, what it drove you into it. So how did you create your company? Where did that come from? How did that process start?
Oh, it's such a fun story. So way back in the year 2000,
Mhm.
I was between different things I was doing and looking for something that was a good fit, and stumbled across in the Los Angeles want ads.
Okay.
If
Let's start.
anybody's over the age of maybe 40, they might understand this. But looking for jobs in the newspaper used to be the way we did things. And I found an opportunity for a counselor. It was under like counseling, but it said they were looking for a mediator.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, what exactly is that? And quickly went about trying to do some research, which that meant opening up the yellow pages
Mhm.
and finding the word mediator, and then calling, I think, the 9 people in all of Los Angeles that did that, which at this point it's probably 9 pages long if there was still a physical yellow pages to look at. And I called them and I just did informational interviews. I said, what is this? How does this affect things? I've always thought of mediation as more of a legal profession. I've never heard of it in the sense of counseling. And so I learned about it. I was immediately enthralled with the idea behind it. And so I set about over the course of that same week looking at training in it, because I'd learned of a few programs, one of which through the Los Angeles County Bar Association was starting the following Monday. And it was only
Mhm.
offered like 3 times a year. And it was starting like a couple days from when I learned about it.
Oh,
So
wow.
I signed up to do that, and it's a 1-week class. And during that 1 week, I'm reaching out to some of the people that had not been able to connect with me about the informational interview. And one of them was like, "Oh my God, you're already in a class for this?" She was amazed. And she's like, "Call me as soon as you're done." So she hired me part-time. And the agency I was working for that said, "You'll never find full-time work in this. This is a volunteer job. You'll never get paid work," I think is what they said. I was like, that's fine. I'll volunteer. I love this. This is going to be my future. I'm going to have to find a way of being involved with conflict resolution and how I can bring that to the world. And I went to interview with the LA County Bar, and they offered me a paid position as well. So within like the span of being told I would never have paid work, I had 2 offers and did both for about a year. And as I was doing them, I quickly realized I wanted to do one of the one through the LA County Bar was actually teaching mediation in middle schools, and then running a peer mediation program where I supervise students mediating one another's disputes. And something that was so fascinating from that I love sharing this, was that the issues they faced, people were like, oh, it's going to be rumors and name calling and, fights and all that. We had this demographic sheet we were supposed to maintain. And more than 90% were just relationship issues. Somebody's feelings got hurt. There was a misunderstanding. Often things would snowball, and it would cause students to either act out, miss school, be unable to focus, and their grades were dropping. I mean, there was such definitive impact. And it was so obvious to me that these issues, middle school students were far more transparent with what was happening, and their emotions were far closer to the surface. It was a parallel with what I knew happened in the business world, because I'd already been in the business world for 12 years. And a little over maybe. And I decided I wanted to start my own business doing that. And so back in like 2002, I formed what at the time was just called Mediating Solutions, which was meant as just workplace conflict and nothing more.
Mhm.
And over time, it spread out, and I became Dynamic Team Solutions, because the work I did in mediation often led to an awareness that somebody I was helping in resolving conflict, I could see their way of looking at things was what was partly to blame. They couldn't get out of their own way. They kept causing new conflicts with the same basic MO. And so I started providing coaching.
Mhm.
Individual people, often at the second part of the mediation, it would be this person now needs some follow-up work, because their reality is a little askew from how it needs to be, of what should happen and how to make those things happen. And then from there, it kept broadening, because I had organizations bring me in and say, we think this person needs coaching, but we can't give them coaching because they're too high up. They'd never buy into it, but their whole team's in disarray. And so it became this team phenomenon where I started working with full teams and addressing that, which was so wonderful. And then training became a part of it. And eventually I just had so many things that were all connected to interpersonal workplace relations that, I realized not only did I have something wonderful I was doing, but I wanted to be able to provide the service broader than what I personally could do. And I started bringing on consultants with specializations that matched mine in some or in many areas.
Mm.
And so at this point, I'm more involved in the speaking, the keynotes, the author and podcast interviews and things of that nature, so that I can help more businesses. And I have a consulting team that's phenomenal in then supporting our clients.
I'm actually intrigued how you got into like what was the way in which you kind of broke into the public speaking space, and like how you were able to kind of like build momentum there, because that's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm just
There's two
purely
parts to it. The first part, I think, is I guess there was always a little bit of an interest in it, because I remember speaking at my college graduation, which was UC Santa Barbara, and it was like 10,000 people. I had like 2 sentences, and I was somewhat terrified because the echo chamber it created when it bounced back made me stumble over my words. But I wasn't afraid of it beyond the fact that that rattled me. And then when I was working actually in the agency that I did the peer mediation, because I did it in tandem with having my own business for several years as well. For about 5 years, I did both. And at one point, we were having a meeting with the board of directors and maybe some funders that were a part of it, because it was a nonprofit division. And the executive director was talking about things, and he just hands me the mic, tell them about the program. And okay. And I did. And people were like, I didn't know you were speaking. I didn't know that you were going to be talking, because I spoke for about 10 minutes. And I said, well, I didn't know either.
Yeah.
Like, you did that off the cuff. I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I know what I'm working with. I know who I'm talking to. I know, what's interesting and what's not. But, they were just amazed at the fact I could just ad hoc, just jump in impromptu and have things that sounded rehearsed and practiced and polished. And it made me aware of the fact it wasn't hard for me. So when I then did have my own business, agencies that I liked speaking for, and one of them was an HR organization. I really liked the people. I liked that they would potentially be interested in the services I was offering, and could bring my consulting team into their business. At the time, it was just me. So after attending a few meetings and becoming a member, I said, you guys have speakers every month. I'd like to be a speaker.
Yeah.
And they said, well, okay, what would you speak on? Give us, and that's how it started. And then, thankfully I'm a fairly amazing speaker. And so the word would get out, hey, she talked on this and it was amazing. And then 3 other chapters would call to say, can you come to our location and do that topic? And then can you speak at our annual conference that's for the whole state and do that conference piece, or a new one? And so it just built from there.
Nice. I love it. That's what I'm actually kind of breaking into public speaking now, but I'm like, okay, I want to kind of streamline it to get the best route possible, right? Just to get in front of people. So so when it comes to conflict resolution, what would you say is the number one or the top reasons that people misunderstand what's going on in that communication? And then how new leaders or young leaders can help to overcome that, can apply some strategies to overcome that.
Okay. So the first part was, what is misunderstood about it? Is that what you asked?
Yeah, kind of like what like because we talked about kind of like a miscommunication and how people are like holding themselves back with whatever their perception is of what's going on. Like it's all about me, or like, they're taking offense. So what are some things that are causing that you've seen just in because you said, hey, I started doing all this conflict resolution, and I started realizing there's all these different reasons why, which got you to expand. So what are kind of some of the most normal, or the not most normal, the most likely reasons that people like that conflict is even starting to happen, and what can leaders do to either mitigate it or help to get over it?
I am not sure how close my 2 answers are going to connect, because they
Okay,
come from such different pockets of my mind.
that's
But
fine. I like it.
but I'm sure they do, because the reason I developed this section on teaching the conflict management piece to leaders is because of my experiences. It's just that those questions in my mind don't immediately connect. So forgive me if they feel disjointed. But my experience, and it does come a lot back to communication, but also to that piece that we talked about at the very beginning about self-awareness and other awareness, and being capable of seeing beyond yourself.
Yeah.
So some of the things that that get in the way is that you have people with different conflict management styles. We know about the person who's like confrontational, we might say, and then avoidant, right? As two styles. And something I love teaching because it just builds up people's minds immediately. And I'm gonna try and create a visual here. It's the distinction between the two. And so imagine a person who has a more confrontational personality style. They're driving down the road and they see a humongous inferno of fire. That's the equivalent of conflict for them. They stumble into it, they've come across it, and it is terrifying, overwhelming. Nothing can happen until you get this inferno out. It is just going to take away their focus on almost everything else. It is undermining them and anybody else they are, connected with. Same situation, you'd have a conflict avoidant person look at it as a small car fire off to the side that's barely doing anything. They're like, we can leave it alone. If we want, we can watch it, but we might just leave it. Just keep moving on. It'll take care of itself.
Yeah.
And those differences on the exact same situation are what cause people to have the conflict explode, because one is demanding focus on it and one is refusing focus on it. And it just causes it to escalate.
Yeah.
And that's really a very common, I intentionally exaggerate it, but when I talk to audiences and I bring that up, people know immediately if they're the inferno or the small car fire. They know how it resonates. I'm an inferno person, and that's probably why conflict resolution appeals to me so much, because I don't love conflict. I'm the fireman, determined to put it out, determined to take care of it because it is so uncomfortable for me. How would you see your own conflict style if I give you those two options?
I'm putting that fire out.
You're the inferno?
Yeah, I'm putting that thing out.
That it's got to go.
Yeah.
Cannot move on. See? So, but when you're confronted with somebody who sees it so differently and their experience of needing to attend to it or not is so different, it creates a lot of friction. So when it comes to leaders,
it makes a lot of sense. It's very profound, actually.
Thank you.
I like that a lot. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I love providing profundities.
Yeah.
Okay. So, the part that I like to teach leaders isn't about how to resolve conflict, because I think that's a big mistake leaders make, especially when they're ones that see an inferno. They just want to take care of it.
Yeah.
And similarly, those that are avoidant don't want to do anything. And there's really a middle ground that is what helps. And so I use an acronym in my book, and the acronym is CALM. And, I begin by saying you're not resolving the conflict. That's not your intention. But the acronym stands for, and I'll break down each in a moment: connect, acknowledge, listen to learn, and then manage. And by that, what I'm teaching is, if you have not formed a strong connection with your team, made them feel important, made them feel valued, help them to know you actively want to see them do well. If you don't create that, they're not going to tell you when there's a problem. Yeah. They may only tell you when it's massive, or they'll quit, and that's how you'll find out. But when you're connected to them and they know you see what they're doing as important and valuable and necessary, they know you want them to succeed. They know you want them to not have hurdles in your way, keeping you from that. So they're going to be more likely to tell you about things early on. So connecting is number one. Acknowledging is number two. And of course, that includes when people come to you, acknowledging that if they've brought it to you, it's important. It's not something you can decide, no, that doesn't need to be dealt with. If they bring it to you, it is important to them and it is in their way. Yeah. But beyond that, there's a lot of times people don't bring things to you. And as a leader, that doesn't mean you don't notice them, but it often means you're not paying attention to them. And the excuses that are often made is, I'm sure it'll resolve itself. I don't know what to do. I don't have the time. They're capable of doing their own, resolution. So they don't acknowledge it. They sometimes just turn a blind eye, deaf ear to a problem that is within their reach. And that, again, it has two messages from that. One is the leader isn't wise enough to notice it. Mm-hmm. Or two, they don't care. And neither is a good look. I mean, they both are bad for a leader, to look like you don't know something important on your team or you don't care about it. Yeah. So connect, acknowledge. The third one's listen to learn. Once you've acknowledged it, especially when somebody's, brought it to you, but even if you're the one to say to them, I am noticing that there's friction. I am noticing eye rolling. I want to feel like our team is connecting and finding collaboration and cohesion in a way I'm not seeing. That's part of the acknowledge. The listen to learn is then listening to hear what's going on.
Yeah.
Not hitting it with like a dartboard of, is it this? Is it that? Can we do this? Can we do that? No, that's trying to solve. Listen, what's happening? How is that in your way? What do you need to resolve it? What are your ideas? Just take in all of what they say. You're going to get enough to help them very often when they just listen to what they need and what's in their way and what they hope will be the end result. And then only then do you manage. And manage doesn't mean resolving it. It often means coaching them on what they need to do,
Yeah.
how to talk to the other person. And part of that includes, for the leader, doing a ton of follow-up. And the follow-up's in two ways. It's following up. I'm giving so many pieces that it's probably rewind and take notes, people. The follow-up is both to make sure that the coaching you gave the person delivered on it. Let's say they have a problem with a colleague. You've coached them into how to approach that colleague. The follow-up is that they need to come back, or you need to go to them to find out, did that happen? And the secondary one is, did it help?
Yeah.
And then it's not just a one and done. Did it help? Is it still helping 2 months down the road, 6 months down the road?
Yeah.
At some point, yes, you can back off on that. But all of those things, staying calm, connected, acknowledging, listening, and managing, is what helps you as a leader to address conflict in the workplace.
There's a couple things I want to just caveat off of what you said. Listen to learn is so key. Just asking questions and shutting up and listening, and just asking a lot of questions to completely understand. And then I like to showcase that I understood by saying, it sounds like you're saying this, and then
Right.
repeating what they said to me. That way I'm showing understanding and I'm building empathy. And
Absolutely. And one more thing than that, at least in the sense of when there's conflict, most people do not articulate what they think they did.
yeah,
It might be verbatim that you repeated back, and they'll say, no, that's not it.
yeah,
But you're helping them to get their message clear.
yeah. And it helps quite a bit. And what it also does is it gains even more affinity
Mhm.
between you and the person that you're speaking with, where they're gonna be like, man, this person really understands me. So when you do go into that management or coaching phase, they're more likely to apply the things. They're more likely to listen to the things because they felt that you listened to them.
100%.
It's
Absolutely.
power of reciprocity, right? Someone gives you a gift, because what do all human beings want? We all want to be understood, period.
Yes.
I don't care where
Yes.
you come from, what part of the world you come from, what your background is. Everybody wants to be understood. And you give somebody that gift where they're like, man, you actually listen to me, like you understand me. They're going to feel obliged to reciprocate the same exact thing to you.
I would say it's different than that. I would say it's not an obligation. It's that they then trust you.
Yeah. But it's like I say an obligation. It's not really an obligation. It's just like it's built within. It's like in our DNA. It's like, you listen to me, I'm going to listen to you. Like it's just
That is the truth. Yes.
yeah,
You
it's like
listen
almost
to
like
me,
get the
get
gift.
me. Once you get me, you have
Yeah,
my ear because you could help me now that you understand me.
absolutely. And so, and then when it comes to the coaching piece, I think a lot of mistakes that leaders make is that they treat giving guidance or instructions or whatever, however you want to look at it, like a fire and forget weapon.
Yes.
Like, boom, I told you, and then like it's out of your mind and you never really check up on it. And it can't be that. Like, you have to have a process. I like the military's counseling structure. So
Mhm.
like you come back together every 30 days until you've gotten into a good rhythm. Then it's every 90 days. And you come back there every 90 days, say, hey, last time we talked about this, that, the other. Let's rehash and see how everything is now, get up to date and kind of go over everything,
Mhm.
right? To make sure, see how it worked and see if there's any new challenges from the last coaching session, right? Or if you have like a weekly coaching session with your team, however you want to do it, but there has to be follow up.
Yep.
It has to be continuous. So, especially as a leader, like your responsibility as a leader is to make sure that you're doing this. So, man, listening to learn and empathy and just providing an understanding, that's probably where most leaders fail.
Mhm.
I think is and from my experience, because you think that you know it, and you don't. Even if you do know it, even if you have a lot of background information, and let's say that one of your top managers tells you ahead of time, like, hey, I got this employee in my team, here's the entire background, right? And gives you everything. And then the employee comes to talk to you, and then you're like, hey, I'm already tracking everything, and you just jump in and start talking, you lost.
Oh yeah.
You lost.
Nobody feels understood until their voice has been what shared the information. Even if you say all the things that are the touch points, it's not finished till they get to tell you whatever nuggets, even if it's repeating what you said. So it's faster just to let them tell you.
It is.
And also it builds back to, again, that piece of connection. And for me, one of the things I talk about in the book, or probably in many ways the biggest thing, is that there's a three-legged stool of leadership. And those three pieces are trust, role clarity, and conflict management. And that if any of them is weak, the other two crumble. And that each one, the stronger each one is, the stronger the others can grow to be. And so with the conflict piece, like I said, doing that, you've built up trust.
Yes.
When you do it in a way that enhances that understanding and is genuine. It's not just to, check a box that you did it, but you genuinely are trying to understand this person and their needs. You're building trust, and they're going to come to you more. It's going to make conflict easier to resolve.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. It's and there is like that with the listening, you're also building trust, like you're just now mentioning. It really is the faster way, even though you feel as a leader, you're like, well, I don't have time for this. Like that's one of the excuses you make, right? I don't have time for this. I already know what's going on. It sounds like this is it, and they didn't say it. You're actually making to where it's going in, for them, it's going in one ear out the other, because you didn't give them the opportunity to go over their situation. They could even say word for word, verbatim, exactly what you said.
Yep.
Right. Doesn't matter. You got to sit there and be like you're hearing it for the first time. Like, oh, tell me more. Like,
no, you don't have to be quite that. You can say, I've heard some of this. But then give some emotional content to it. To say, and it sounds like it's been really hard.
Yeah.
Just connect with them, really give them that sense of this matters. It's not just that I'm checking off a box, it matters.
Yeah.
And, on the flip, when you don't do this, because again, there's going to be people that might listen to this and think, well, but it is faster for me to do it myself. In my book, there's go to page 160, I think 160 or 168, somewhere in there. In my book, I break down exactly what will go wrong, because there's 9 levels of what goes wrong when you try and shortchange it because you think it's going to be better. And it undermines so much, and it creates a spillover that goes beyond the people you are trying to help resolve an issue and into the team and into the culture. And it's just, yes, it's trickles of it, but those trickles keep moving because you don't attend to the damage. And then you have the inferno.
Yep. And it's just, you just basically pour gasoline on it. So in some instances, which I made that mistake too. And the reason why I understand this at this level is because I've made this mistake many a times as a young officer in the Army, and I learned from it. Like I saw the repercussions from it, and hey, I had the opportunity to make those mistakes though, right? And so when it comes to, so you wrote your book. How long ago did you write your book?
It was published just almost a year ago, 2/22, okay. Just over a year ago. 2/22/22 was my release date, intentionally. And it was a work in progress in a legitimate writing and editing for about 3 years, but it had been a work in progress for probably 15, because I actually have potentially 3 other books I'll be writing. I knew, because I'd had so many of my clients over the years just say, because much like that time that I was asked to speak, and for 15 minutes or whatever it was, 10, 15 minutes, just spoke without any notes and just threw into it. I'm like that when clients call me and ask for some thoughts or advice. And so they're like, oh, I just need to carry you in my pocket. Can you please write a book? You just need to put these things there so I can resource them whenever I need. And, I had so many notes. I finally took a weekend and just decided this is what I'm doing. And as I was going through my notes, I recognized I actually had 4 books. The first one was the one that you see, Find, Fix, Fail Your Leadership Gap, focused on leaders. But my intention over the course of time, I don't know how quick I'll do it, is to do one on teams, one on specifically conflict and conflict management, and then one for HR, for people that are on the outside but are influential in what they can do, because there's so much that they can do differently and better. And I know they're hungry for that, but they're often not in a position to know what to do.
Yeah. Did you start your coaching before the book?
Oh,
or
years before.
years before? Okay. So a lot of people do like their book first. They use it as a kind of the bona fides to be like, hey, I understand this topic very well. And they use that to get into the coaching or speaking space.
Yeah, no. In fact, one of the things that I'm weakest at is giving tons of resources and citations because this comes from my in the trenches work with hundreds of businesses and thousands of leaders
Mhm.
and seeing the commonality of these traits coming through. And it wasn't that I had long ago come up with this three-legged stool. It was as I was writing it and teaching the lessons, I realized, wait a minute, I'm kind of always talking about the same things. I need to focus in on those as what they are and recognize the impact.
Just having that
Um,
epiphany while you're writing. I love it.
yeah, I mean, which is part of why it took so long because I was like writing, then I was like, oh, I have to completely retool how I'm writing this to make the message clear enough that it can help someone who's trying to learn.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. So what is some what would you say is some good books besides your own, obviously, or some good research that leaders can do that can help take them to the next level and maybe improve their ability to lead effectively?
One of my favorites, and I talk about it a lot when people ask me, is one called Nine Lies About Work by Marcus Buckingham and Ashley Goodall.
Mhm.
And I mean, I can offer several more suggestions, but that one I picked it up because I was curious by the title, and then it breaks down in these nine different lies, things that are presumed as correct, and even many of them I presumed as correct, and it says that it's a lie, and I'm like, prove it, I'm up for the challenge. I'm going to take you down, but I was in each case able to really go, wow, that's really amazing. And some of the lessons that I got from that, one of them was that feedback is bad.
Yeah.
Because I think the title was Feedback is Good. And I was like, how is that not good? But they talk about, when you're pointing out someone's mistakes, you're bringing focus to what you don't want. And it doesn't even help them to focus better on this, but, how to focus on the positives. And there's a lot of recommendations and suggestions they get in there. Another suggestion that I remember really taking to heart that I've spoken of even in my client engagements is about how many people you can actually manage and lead. And the number isn't the same for different people because it's however many you can actually have that ongoing communication with on a weekly basis. And they talk about the idea of, and this spoke directly to my philosophy, so I really loved it. But the idea that, if you're having meetings just to talk about what's been accomplished, you're failing as a leader. It should always be, where are you stuck? Where are you headed? And I actually build into mine, which is part of the role clarity chapter, which many people have, or sections more than a chapter. Many people have told me was the most eye-opening for them was that role clarity piece. But it's the, meetings should not be about what you've done. And not only should they not be that, but they also shouldn't be about just you. It should be, here's where I'm stuck. Here's what I need. And everybody else is saying how they can help. And it's the round robin of that keeps everybody engaged in the meeting because they're looking at how they can get help and how they can provide help. And everybody benefits from that. And then that role clarity piece builds into better trust as well and less conflict.
I like that in terms of the meetings. I really like that, which I find that that's what we're doing for most of our meetings already, just kind of organically. We're talking about, hey, this is the problem we're having. This is what we're currently looking at doing. Don't really talk about, and I'm thinking about my manager meetings when I have with like my higher level managers in the company. But no, that's fantastic. I love that concept. Of
Yeah.
like
And
the next level.
inviting in people to give you advice is something most people don't do in a business, in a meeting setting. But if your entire team does that, that's part of the culture almost of the team meeting is now I'm opening it up for suggestions and advice and support.
Yeah.
It gives everybody that sense of we really are a team. We're going to be helping each other. And it doesn't mean you're obligated to take anybody's advice. It means at least everybody's working to the same purpose.
Mhm. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
no one's in the dark either. You know where people are stuck.
Candace, this has been a fantastic conversation. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. This is actually a really great leadership concept and
Thank
conversation
you.
that we've had. If anybody wants to follow or like look at more of your coaching or learn more from you, what's the best place to like reach out to you or follow you?
My company website is dynamicteamsolutions.com. .org. If you're interested in my book and just the author stuff, both you can find me on Amazon, but I also have an author page. It's my full name, CandiceGottlieb-Clark.com. And I'm active on LinkedIn. So please, any of those, please find me. You'll find that on Amazon, you can get the first 2 chapters for free before you even buy the book. So you can take a look and see if it matches you. It doesn't go into a lot of the strategies yet in the first 2 chapters, but it does give you a sense of my style and whether or not you would want to read more.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And the last question I have for all my guests is, you have the opportunity to sit down with, learn from, eat with, have a conversation with 3 different individuals, anyone in history, living or deceased. Who would those 3 be and why?
Oh man. My grandmother, because I just miss her. So there's one.
Okay.
I'm going to throw her out there first, because if I could, oh my God, I would love to have another conversation with her. She died when I was 22. I would want to say, I can't even tell you which pope. I'm Jewish, so it doesn't come to mind which pope I would be wanting to talk to. So I'd have to look into it. But one of the last maybe 2 decades, just to talk to them about the impact of their role and ways they could maybe create, more peace, which is, I know, their goal in the world. And a third, I don't know. Gosh, I'm like trying to think of who would be a fun person to meet, just someone fun. And nothing comes to mind quickly enough. I'm just going to say Bono from U2 because I'm a big fan.
Hey, you know what? Then you can.
Hey, why not? I did
Why
meet
not?
him once, but I didn't get to have a sit down. So if I could have a sit down, that'd be fun.
That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. Well, thank you so much. That is awesome movement. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And for those of you who are listening earlier, Candice was saying, go back, rewind, listen again, and you should, because there was a lot of information and a lot of value that's provided. Now, if you got value from this, if you learned anything, if you took anything away with you, or if it even changed your perspective a little bit, I ask a favor. Share this with somebody else that can also get value, that can change their communication style, maybe a little bit of their understanding, become a better leader. And that way they can learn more about Candice, and they can hopefully buy her book, which I'm going to be doing as well, because I'm an avid reader and I love reading leadership books. So
Awesome.
it takes you 60 seconds to rate, review, subscribe, and share this, but it means the world to Candice and I. So this has been the Be the Difference podcast. I'm your host, Greg Birch. Until next time, we'll see you. Take care.